one title. The haunting him in the remote village of Ravenswood, nestled deep within a dense, ancient forest, lived a recluse named Samuel. Samuel was a man shrouded in mystery, known for his peculiar obsession with an old ornate music box that played a hauntingly beautiful melody. One fateful night, as the full moon cast an eerie glow over the village, Samuel was tormented by a bout of sleep paralysis, unlike any he had ever experienced. His eyes darted around the room, but his body lay frozen, as if bound by invisible chains. The air grew thick with dread as a malevolent presence loomed in the darkness. Through his paralysis, Samuel saw a shadowy figure, tall and slender, standing at the foot of his bed. It was cloaked in tattered rags, and its eyes burned like twin embers in the night. The figure's outstretched hand held the ornate music box, its haunting melody filling the room. Unable to move or scream, Samuel could only watch in terror as the figure wound the music box's key with deliberate slowness. The haunting tune began to play, its ethereal notes resonating with a chilling harmony. It was as if the melody itself held the power to bind his soul. As the music played on, Samuel's mind was filled with disturbing visions. He saw ancient rituals, sacrificial altars, and spectral apparitions. The figure at the foot of his bed seemed to grow stronger with each note, drawing Samuel deeper into its malevolent grasp. In a desperate struggle for control, Samuel focused all his willpower on a single thought: the music box. With a Herculean effort, he managed to twitch his finger and, slowly but surely, inched it towards the small, ornate box that held his tormentor's power. As his trembling fingers finally reached the music box, Samuel summoned all his strength and slammed it shut. The melody abruptly ceased, and the room was plunged into an oppressive silence. The shadowy figure let out an anguished, otherworldly scream before dissipating into nothingness. Samuel awoke, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. The room was empty, and he could move once more. The cursed music box now lay silent on his nightstand. He had broken the cycle, but he knew the malevolent presence would forever haunt his dreams, lurking in the shadows, waiting for another chance to ensnare his soul. From that night on, Samuel kept the music box locked away, hidden from the world. The haunting hymn remained etched in his memory, a reminder of the twisted horrors that lurked in the depths of his own mind, ready to manifest in the realm of sleep paralysis. Story 2 title: The Mirror's Malevolence. In a quaint, centuries-old cottage nestled deep within a remote forest lived a woman named Emily. Emily was a recluse, her only companion being a large, ornate mirror that had been in her family for generations. Little did she know that this mirror held a sinister secret, one that would unleash a terrifying ordeal. One moonless night, Emily retired to her bedroom, feeling unusually weary. She placed a candle in front of the ancient mirror, casting eerie, flickering shadows around the room. As she drifted into slumber, a sense of unease settled over her. In the dead of night, Emily's eyes snapped open, but she found herself trapped in a paralyzed state. Panic surged as she realized she couldn't move a muscle. She scanned her dimly lit room, and her gaze froze on the mirror. To her horror, the reflection in the mirror wasn't her own. Instead, it showed a grotesque, contorted version of herself, with hollow, malevolent eyes that seemed to seep darkness. The reflection grinned wickedly, mocking her helplessness. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she watched in terror. The mirror seemed to pull her consciousness towards it, and she felt an irresistible urge to reach out and touch the glass. She strained against her paralysis, desperate to resist the mirror's sinister allure. The room grew colder, and Emily's breath misted in the chill air. The mirror's reflection beckoned her, its voice a haunting whisper that echoed in her mind. It promised her untold power and pleasures if she surrendered to it. As the minutes dragged on, Emily's willpower waned. She felt herself inching closer to the mirror, her hand trembling as it reached out to touch the glass. Just as her fingers grazed the mirror's surface, she heard a distant voice calling her name. It was her own voice, muffled and distant, but growing louder. The voice seemed to cut through the malevolent spell of the mirror. With one final surge of willpower, Emily managed to wrench her hand away from the glass. Suddenly, she was released from her paralysis. Gasping for breath, she watched as the mirror's reflection contorted in rage, its eyes blazing with fury. Emily knew she had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. She fled from the room, leaving the mirror behind. She never returned to that chamber, sealing it off from the rest of the cottage. Emily lived the rest of her days haunted by the memory of that night, never daring to gaze into a mirror again, for fear that the malevolent presence within the ancient-looking glass might one day find another victim to ensnare in its wicked web. Story 3 title: The Shadowed Slumber. Once, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, nestled beneath the shadow of a looming ancient oak tree, lived a man named Nathan. Nathan was an insomniac, tormented by restless nights and a fear of sleep paralysis. His nights were a waking nightmare, and he longed for just one peaceful slumber. One fateful evening, after hours of tossing and turning, Nathan finally succumbed to his exhaustion. As his eyelids grew heavy and the room darkened, he entered a fitful sleep. Little did he know, his battle with sleep paralysis was about to take a terrifying turn. In the depths of the night, Nathan awoke with a start. His room was cloaked in an eerie silence, and he realized he couldn't move a muscle. Panic surged through his veins as he sensed an oppressive presence in the room. His heart raced as he tried to scream, but his voice was trapped in his throat. With a creeping dread, Nathan noticed a figure at the foot of his bed. It was a shadowy silhouette, amorphous yet menacing, with eyes that glowed like twin orbs of malevolence. The figure moved closer, its every step sending shivers down Nathan's immobile form. He could feel its icy breath on his face. The entity whispered dark, incomprehensible words into Nathan's ear, filling his mind with a maddening cacophony of voices. He felt a crushing weight on his chest, as if some unseen force was trying to smother him. The room grew colder, and he could see his own breath in the frigid air. As the minutes stretched into eternity, Nathan's terror deepened. He desperately tried to will himself awake, to escape the clutches of this nightmare. But his body remained paralyzed, and the malevolent presence seemed to relish his suffering. Suddenly, with a jolt, Nathan awoke. He was bathed in sweat, gasping for breath, but the room was empty, and he could move freely once more. It had all been a horrific dream, a manifestation of his sleep paralysis. Shaken and trembling, Nathan resolved to confront his fear. He sought help from sleep specialists, delving into the mystery of his subconscious. Over time, the nightmarish episodes of sleep paralysis became less frequent, and he learned to regain control over his own mind. But to this day, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that the shadowy entity still lurked in the corners of his dreams, waiting for an opportunity to return. Sleep, once his tormentor, had become his battleground, and he was determined to never let the shadows claim him again. And so, the oak tree outside his window stood sentinel, casting long, unsettling shadows across his room each night, a constant reminder of the darkness he had once faced, and the eternal struggle to keep it at bay. Story 4 title: The Whispers of the Midnight Caller. In the heart of a sprawling metropolis lived Sarah, a woman with a passion for vintage telephones. Her apartment was adorned with a unique collection of rotary phones, each with a storied past. Little did she know that one of these telephones held a malevolent secret. One frigid winter night, Sarah crawled beneath her thick quilt, seeking solace from the howling winds outside. She closed her eyes, hoping for a restful slumber. Her dreams would soon turn into a horrifying nightmare. In the dead of night, Sarah found herself trapped in the grip of sleep paralysis. Her eyes darted around the room, but her body remained immobile. An unnatural chill filled the air as the room darkened, save for the soft, eerie glow of moonlight. A vintage rotary phone on her nightstand began to ring. its bell resonating with a haunting, discordant melody. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized she could hear the ringing, even though she knew her phone line had been disconnected for years. The sound was a discordant symphony of dread. Desperate and unable to move, Sarah's eyes were drawn to the ringing phone. Its receiver lifted itself off the hook with spectral precision. A whispering voice, neither male nor female, emanated from the receiver, its words filled with cryptic messages and chilling prophecies. The voice spoke of forgotten sins and long-buried secrets, each word etching a paralyzing fear into Sarah's soul. It knew things about her that no one else could, and its eerie knowledge left her trembling with dread. In her struggle to break free, Sarah finally managed to move a single finger. She reached out with trembling hand and pulled the phone's cord from the wall. The ringing ceased, and the room returned to its eerie silence. Gasping for breath, Sarah awoke, her bed drenched in sweat. The room was once again quiet, and she could move freely. She cast a wary eye toward the vintage phone, its receiver still ominously resting on the hook. Sarah knew that whatever had called to her that night was not of this world. The vintage telephone, once a beloved collector's item, had become a conduit to the other side, a chilling reminder that some connections should never be reestablished, especially in the realm of sleep paralysis. Story 5 title: The Crimson Grasp in the remote, dilapidated farmhouse at the edge of a sprawling cornfield lived a man named Thomas. He was a solitary farmer known for his reclusive nature and the whispered rumors of strange occurrences on his property. Little did anyone suspect that Thomas's sleep paralysis held a gruesome secret. One moonless night, as a thunderstorm raged outside, Thomas found himself trapped in the paralyzing grip of sleep paralysis. His eyes were wide open, and a cruel silence enveloped his room. Lightning intermittently illuminated the darkness, casting eerie shadows that danced upon the walls. Thomas's horror deepened as he saw a grotesque figure looming at the foot of his bed. It was a ghastly specter, cloaked in tattered rags and drenched in blood. Its eyes were hollow voids, and a malevolent grin revealed rows of razor-sharp, blood-stained teeth. Unable to move or cry out, Thomas could only watch in terror as the figure extended its bony, blood-smeared hand towards him. With each agonizingly slow movement, it dripped thick, crimson droplets onto the wooden floor below. The figure's raspy whisper filled the room, recounting tales of ancient horrors and gruesome deeds. Its voice was a symphony of torment, each word searing into Thomas's mind like a branding iron. It reveled in describing unspeakable acts of violence and gore. As the minutes stretched into a torturous eternity, Thomas's paralysis slowly began to recede. Desperation fueled his willpower, and with a final surge of strength, he broke free from the grip of his nightmarish visitor. Gasping for air, he scrambled out of bed. The figure, now writhing in anguish, let out an ear-piercing wail that echoed through the farmhouse. Thomas clutched his ears in agony as he watched the specter disintegrate into a crimson mist, leaving behind only a chilling, blood-soaked stain on the floor. Thomas's heart pounded as he tried to make sense of the horrifying ordeal. He knew he had glimpsed something beyond the realm of the living, something that reveled in blood and pain. The farmhouse, once a place of solitude and solace, had become tainted with the malevolent presence that had visited him in the depths of sleep paralysis. From that night on, the farmhouse would forever be haunted by the grisly stain of the past, a testament to the horrors that could manifest in the darkest recesses of the human mind, even in the confines of sleep paralysis.